Good evening. Let me start off by asking you guys a question. What do you imagine the world would be like in 2050? Have you ever given it thought? 2030? Did you think the world would be what it is today, maybe 10, 15 years ago? Some of you might be too young as well to think, right? Yeah. Anyway, so today I'm going to take you on a journey, and I hope you guys join me. I'm going to take you first back in time so that you would understand a little bit about the evolution of the food service industry. Then we'll look at the current situation through the looking glass, and then we'll ask the crystal ball to tell us what the future has for us. Okay, so you guys are ready? So I'm going to take you way back, right? I'm going to take you to prehistoric times. And why I take you to the prehistoric time is because back in the day, man was very simple. He had basic needs. Food, right?
Rocky, I've just discovered the best thing ever.
Better than this?
Way better than that. This actually does something. Trust me, Rocky, you have never experienced anything like this in your whole life.
What is it?
It changes your whole perspective on shit.
Oh my god! This is crazy!
Keep it going. And stop now. Now try and walk.
Oh my, this is amazing! This is amazing!
Yeah, so as you can see, the prehistoric man was always discovering things for the first time, right? Some of these things were very new to them back in the day. So let's have a look through the Stone Age, right? The first man was known as a nomad. The nomad used to follow his food across vast amounts of land, right? Discovering a lot of things as he went. And that's what they always did, right? So they didn't have permanent houses to live in, and they used to live in temporary places. And what happens is eventually they figure out that instead of moving around, they can start domesticating animals, right? Some of the initially domesticated animals are animals that we domesticate today as well. And they also start the agricultural revolution. This is where they start farming, okay? So this happens around 9,000 to 3,000 BC. And what happens during this time is that they discover the wheel, which sets place for the current, let's say, transportation that we use today, right? And through this, what happens is they move into the metal ages. So they go through the copper, bronze, and of course the Iron Age. And during this era, they find metal, obviously, right? And what happens is they become more efficient in the way they hunt, right? The way they cultivate and they do farming. France, 1750 to 1800. Does anyone know what happens during this time? So this is the French Revolution. Basically, what happens during this time is that the aristocrats basically get thrown out, and they leave behind a whole bunch of chefs and workers. So what happens is these people start looking for jobs, and they see there is a need where there is no food eateries out there. The first eateries that were created were known as restoratives. So these are healthy eating options. What happens is you go here and they serve a broth or a soup for you, and you revitalize yourself. And this is the inception of restaurants. So restaurants are not very old. They're about 200 to 250 years old. And once they go out and they take this experience of dining to the common man, this is where fine dining comes from. And that's where it starts from. And Napoleon, who was a dictator back then, encouraged this because he always believed a person who was not hungry would not go against him. So now that we touched a little bit on the history of these, let's look at where we are now. The food service industry generates about 1.4 trillion a year. Right? It creates more than 5.5 million jobs. It produces about 3.8 billion tons of produce. Online shopping is predicted to be more than 100 billion just for groceries when it comes to 2022. And investments in food startups over 1 billion in 2016. And lifestyles. They've seen a growth in vegan from 1% to 6% in a span of 3 years. So what this says is that food and our lifestyles have drastically changed over a short period of time. But this comes at a cost. It's estimated that by 2050 there'll be 9.8 billion people in the world. Currently, as we stand, 1 in 9 people go to sleep hungry. 1 in 3 people suffer with malnutrition. So there's a lot that we need to solve. And just imagine when you have a population of 9.8 billion people, how are we going to sustain? Right? We're running short of space to cultivate without harming the environment. Right? How do you still give food, make it accessible to everyone, that you get good food, that's healthy food, right? And how do you reduce wastage? See, earlier I told you that we produce about 3.8 billion tons of food. We waste about 1.3 of it. So 1/3 of the food is thrown away. Okay? This comes to about $680 billion just in developed countries when it comes to how much we waste. In a developed country, mostly, let's say in EU or North America, there's about 95 to 115 kilos per person that is wasted a year. And some of these things are due to very questionable quality standards. If you walk into a supermarket, everything that's laid out for you needs to look good. It doesn't mean it's bad. Fruits and vegetables are thrown out just because they're bruised slightly. And this is wastage as well. So I'm just going to show you and what some people do out there in terms of how they're addressing these problems.
How it works is effectively in commercial kitchens. It's very difficult to understand what's being wasted, where it's happening, and why. These are busy operations. They're very complex operations. And what Winnow does is we provide a data platform for the kitchen on what they're wasting to inform the chef on how they can run an operation better. And there's an old tenet that what gets measured gets managed.
Are you saying that what's disruptive about the tech you use is that it's changing behavior?
What's disruptive about the tech that we use is we're providing data in a place where data didn't exist. And we're trying to provide that information in a way that will drive action.
Mark showed me how Winnow works.
This is what Winnow is. It's a scale that sits underneath the bin to automatically record that food waste, and a tablet that would sit next to it to help you identify what it was and collect the costs of what's being wasted.
Okay, let's have a go.
So if you would imagine that you were throwing away some oranges like this, right? So you throw some oranges away just like that. The screen will pop up, and let's say that it was from breakfast. So you would tap that. That's right, it was fruits. And then you select the item from there.
Citrus fruit. Right, so that's £2.61, but over a year, that's £953. That's a lot of money.
Yeah, and just imagine sort of how often that will happen throughout a day in the kitchen and what that adds up to.
So yeah, so that's just when you look at it, you might think this sounds pretty straightforward, right? But you need to actually stop and think sometimes, and sometimes it means that you need to change the way the kitchen works or how restaurants work.
The way Winnow works is...
So what does this mean when it comes to the future, right? These are a few options that we have out there. So to counter the problem of space, you get vertical farming, right? People are experimenting with this with vertical farming, and then you get GMO foods. GMO foods are basically genetically modified foods. Some of the fruits and the vegetables that we see today were not the original vegetables or the fruits. For instance, corn. Corn was not what corn is today, right? Similarly, the watermelon that you see, or even pears, peaches, most of these things have been genetically modified or selectively bred to make it look what it is today. Also plant-based meats. So recently Subway launched their first meatball sandwich, which is plant-based, 100% plant. There's no meat in it, right? And automated driven vehicles, drones, we see this, we hear about it very frequently to tackle any issues when it comes to access and getting food to the relevant people. And 3D printing, which is also a very interesting concept on how they'll print food in the future. It's already been done. You see it done for cupcakes and certain items like that as well. And critters. Anyone knows what critters are? Insects. There's over 1,900 species of insects that can be eaten. And surprisingly enough, there's about 2 billion people who already do. Okay. AI and robotics is something that's spoken about very frequently today. We've seen, have you heard about Sally, the salad bot? Makes some of the freshest salads out there, right? Or Flippy, the kitchen assistant, works 20 hours a day, flips the perfect burger patty, right? Pepper by MasterCard, again, a restaurant assistant can take your order, tell you what the specials are, take your payments, right? Kiwi bots, delivery bots, the one right there, right? Or Sweeper, which is something very interesting where in the food service industry, picking fruits, this robot could walk through the aisles and it takes images of the fruits, compares it with the data it has to see if it is right for picking, and it just manages to do that. So, which is amazing. However, we're talking about the smart world, right? Where do you think we need to be smart? I'll show you something that I found very interesting, and I never thought people would do something like this.
We don't always know what's in our pantry. It's really hard to know how healthy we are eating or to track nutrition, not to mention how annoying it is when things run out. So at Ski Labs, we created Neo, a smart jar that brings our kitchen into the connected world. Neo is built with sensors and Bluetooth connectivity. Configure it once and Neo remembers what you have and how much of it. Wondering what to make for dinner? That's easy. Our app gets recipes based on ingredients you already have. So you can choose to make whatever you like from hundreds of delicious choices. If you're expecting company, Neo can automatically adjust the recipe proportions to any number of people, so you'll get the perfect taste every single time. Neo also keeps track of nutrition for you, be it one jar or a bunch of them. It gives real-time data on calories, protein, carbs, and fat. You can keep track of what's important to you over time and even sync it with fitness devices. You'll never run out of anything. Our zero-touch shopping adds items right in time to your mobile shopping list and restocks them for you from your favorite online stores. Neo also keeps track of best before dates, so you never have to guess or compromise on the freshness.
365 days a year, all seasons, one mug to fit them all. Meet Yekup, the wireless on-the-go mug for all seasons. The only temperature-adjustable wireless mug that can boil or cool down your drinks and maintain your preferred temperature throughout the day. You can take Yekup with you anywhere you go. Pour your favorite drink. Choose how cold or how hot you want your drink to be. Yekup will notify you once it reaches your desired temperature and your drink is ready. Just like you like it. Very, very cold or boiling hot.
You guys get the idea, right? Some of these things you wouldn't even think of, right? So, which brings me to the point. I showed you what a smart mug is. right? And I showed you what a smart jar can do. You guys use smartphones, right? Some people live in smart houses. They drive smart cars. You wear smart watches. You cook in smart kitchens, right? You watch smart TVs. You light a smart bulb. What does this mean? Coming back to the question I asked you at the start, what do you imagine the future would look like? It's right in front of you, right? We're building a smart future, okay? So we can build a smart world. So for us working in the food service industry, what does this mean to us? We get this question asked very frequently, like, what do we need to do? Where do we need to innovate, right? We need to think smart food. Thank you.